everybody, and welcome to this Meet Author session. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the part of the world you are located right now. Today, we are going to talk about CCIE security in a remote and cloud-driven network, SASE and beyond. My name is Hilda Arteaga, and I am a community manager of the Cisco community and the host of today's event. So first of all, we would like to thank all of you for joining us today, and we'd like to thank Chad, Vivek, Jamie, and Aaron, and welcome them to this session. We are really thank you and honored to have you on this Meet the Authors event, and actually on the fact of covering the second volume of this book. So on this special event, you will be able to learn from the world-class security experts. Along the session, you will learn more about relevance on CCIE security in post-pandemic and how to prepare for this challenging landscape of network and security. In addition, they will cover the key content of their security book. And as you can see on your screen, firstly, we will get to know more about the authors and the story behind the book. Then they will present the key contents, as I mentioned before, and we will have a space also to clarify questions verbally and in real life. So we got a great surprise and news for you. For those who hasn't attended before, we will be giving away 2 copies of the book on this event. They are actually signed by these authors. So how about you would like to have a copy of one of these books? And what do you have to do and how can you participate? Please stay with us during this session and we will be letting you know and mentioning the winners at the end of the session. So let's get started with this event. Well, first of all, and once again, thank you so much for joining you. We know you're actually really knowledgeable and really savvy in everything that you do. And you are very well known not only for being Cisco Press authors, principal engineers, principal architects, among many other titles that you guys have. And indeed, there are too many things that we can actually chat with you and let more and talk for hours and hours. But we would like to start in the beginning. We asked you this in the first version of this Meet the Authors events for the volume 1 of this, but I'm gonna go with this one again. So how you guys started all your career in technology, in IT? Was that a special opportunity? Was there a promise? And I will start with Chad since we didn't have you in the last event.
Thanks, Hilda. Yeah, so getting into technology, it started for me. Before I started in IT, I was a car mechanic. I actually went to Lincoln Technical Institute, got my degree in automotive technology, and worked on cars, speed shops, Mercedes-Benz, etc. Did that for a few years, and then I decided that I wanted to get back into computers. So went back to college again, did information security stuff, and did a bunch of deployments of NAC appliance and ICE and firewalls and so forth. So that's got me to where I'm at today at Cisco. But I find a lot of similarities between fixing cars and fixing networks. So it's kind of a fitting thing for me.
That's amazing. So what was the car like? Your biggest challenge when fixing a car? Did you was it a particular brand or particular model?
Oh, I mean, I worked at a Mercedes-Benz dealership originally, fixing all different brands of Mercedes-Benz. I was in the night shift. We were there till 11 o'clock at night. And then after that, I went to a speed shop working on high horsepower, 4-cylinder turbocharged cars. So taking the motors apart, putting all the bolts in one box. I can probably tell you exactly where each bolt goes today, just because I did so many of them. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it
really
was fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Mechanics cannot cheat you at all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I can tell you, Chad probably doesn't take his cars to a mechanic.
No.
But I can tell you, he actually is one of the better troubleshooters that you'll run into, probably because learning how to troubleshoot a car and learning how to troubleshoot anything it's understanding troubleshooting processes that actually I think don't really change much. Right? Troubleshooting skills in and of themselves, I think, translate well. So it makes Chad one of the better troubleshooters in the game anyway, because he just tries to understand how things work no matter what. And So he's always trying to break things so he understands how they work. I think Jamie, who used to be his boss, will probably agree with me on Chad breaking things so that he understands how they work. Or
So
maybe Jamie want to comment on that.
Yeah, I met Chad when he was still an intern at one of the Cisco partners that we both worked for. So I was definitely in there almost seeing how I could stump the chump, as we like to call it, and throwing anything and everything I could at the guy. And I was actually a big advocate for being able to see that progression, right? Starting with basic skills, but having the knack to actually get in, get your hands dirty, that definitely was Chad from the beginning. And that kind of passion towards learning and getting through things actually, I think, helped him go through CCIE and some of the other kind of career milestones as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I always remember Jamie telling me, don't come and ask me questions until you've exhausted all resources available to you. So, troubleshoot, look at the documents, figure it out. And, that's how I studied for my CCIE. And that's hopefully how we can help you guys.
It is one of the funnier topics informally, right? And I think CCIE proves it out. Anyone who's gone through the process kind of has that or should have that mindset, right? The knowledge or the information is out there. Start with good baseline. And actually, that's what was so fun about getting these books out there, because when I went through it, when a lot of us went through CCIE Security, it was, I got to read thousands upon thousands of pages of documentation to try to understand the concepts. I wish there was a routing TCP/IP 2-volume version for security. And I know I had that thought, and then I jumped on board as soon as Aaron and Vivek were all about trying to make this happen for CCIE Security. I was all about it.
So talking about like this way of building up a career in IT and security, so how you started to build it up? You just mentioned a couple of things, Jamie, and what do you guys would recommend for those who are looking that path, which is actually really hot and popular nowadays?
Yeah, I'll go first and then pass the question along. The first thing that's kind of so important is just trying to find what area of technology. So it is really good to start with a baseline. I think the certification programs help a lot with that, kind of starting broad and understanding different disciplines of security, for example, prior to going deep into any one or a few areas. The biggest kind of comment, today's market, there's so many jobs, there's just not enough people to put in them. But what you have to look at is, start going to some of the job sites, go to LinkedIn, start to see the skills in the job descriptions and start to understand based on what that day-to-day looks like for being a incident responder, for example, or a pen tester, or a network security engineer or architect. What are the skills that are required for that type of job? And then be able to take some of that and work your way back to the certifications and getting a good level set of information to be able to work towards that journey. That was definitely how I started out. Like, just start by understanding or building some baseline, and then you kind of jump in and see what you like. I actually started with Microsoft certifications and becoming an MCSE for Windows 2000, and did the whole CompTIA A+ and Net Plus back in the day. And then I did a little thing called Cisco Networking Academy, got my CCNA, and started to look at the networking world and the server world and application world, and then immediately said, well, security is actually a really cool career because I can apply all of that knowledge to network security, architecture, and application and other security types. So it's definitely a fun journey.
I did very similar to Jamie there in that I was already I'm older than I think every other one of these guys too, but I was helping out with the computer networks of like every family friend known to man while I was thinking I wanted to be a doctor at the time, going to school and doing computer things on the side. And I was helping doctors with Novell networks and never had any formal training, and went to get my Novell certifications and my Microsoft certifications, and met CCIE number 1082, I think was his number, and found out about this technology company called Cisco and just fell in love with it after that, and just really got interested in it and started saying, you know, I really want to be a CCIE. It just hit me with this challenge, and I went down that route and just never looked back, and then started installing firewalls before there were firewalls. There used to be this thing called a Cisco Sentry firewall, which probably nobody on this call, including the authors, has ever heard of, which was replaced by a PIX years later. You know, it was really interesting. But given my age, I also have a kid who's trying to get into this field now. She's 22 years old. She's in college for a computer science degree, and she's just getting to the point where she's a junior, and she's going for a summer internship for a networking company, not Cisco, but actually a Cisco customer. And you know, she's figuring out what she wants to do in technology, and there's so many little areas where you can specialize in this, and it's actually really frightening when I look at it now from someone trying to get into it as compared to when I tried to get into it 10,000 years ago. And it's just, man, where to start is just find something that interests you, get that foot in the door, and then realize that it's endless possibilities of where you can go from there. And that if your goal is CCIE security, that's awesome. That's a great goal to shoot for. And we wrote a 2-volume set because there's so much material for this exam. There was no way to fit it in a single book, and it's a terrific goal to shoot for. And there's so much you can do with it, and go for that. I mean, and that's an excellent thing to shoot for, and nothing would be wasted going towards it. Vivek, you've been silent. You want to say something?
Thinking as you're speaking, as technology changes, obviously we started very, very simple, and I speak more about it in the main content section. But the way technology is changing, if there's ever a iteration of these books, it might end up being a 3-volume set. So yeah, I don't envy the people who are going to go for CCI now, because frankly, it's more difficult than it was back in our days. You know, heck, I'll be 15 years certified next year. So just thankful I did it when I did it.
I gotta agree with Vivek and give people some kind of optimism, pessimistic point of view around CCIE security. I think the first lab attempt I did for CCIE security, I was able to get 100% on firewall, VPN, IDS, IPS, layer 2 security, and I still failed. And it was one of those things where I was laughing because every category that was like core security features, I did perfect in. And then I missed, you know, some of the subtle technologies that are supporting, but just as important. And so the moral of the story there is, there is a lot to learn. There's a lot to kind of digest, and you know, going through the process actually helps you get smarter, gets you actually faster at learning too.
And another reason we'll speak more about it is just because things have become complex, that should not dissuade you from doing the certification, right? There is a bigger market for CCIs now. And frankly, CCIs are paid much better now than they did back when we did CCIs, right? So yes, it's more difficult, but it's more rewarding in every other way.
And there's only so much time, right? There's only so much time to test. So, I mean, while there's a large swath of stuff to understand and know, you know, kind of what Jamie was talking about with baseline, you know, understanding, you know, those layer 2, layer 3 routing protocols, understanding, you know, IPsec encryption and how tunnels work and so forth. You know, all those things are, you know, obviously game to be on the test, but then there's also the, you know, these subtle things that Jamie mentioned, you know, whether it's a WCCP configuration option or something about 802.1x. One of the ways that I studied for this, and I try to tell everybody that comes to me and asks is, go in and break it out into those chunks and commit those chunks of data to memory, because when you actually need to bring it back to the forefront, your fingers will know what to do. Everything, when you look at the configuration, you'll see things they'll just stand right out. And that's where, I broke it down. I did, DMVPN phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, did it as fast as I possibly could using viral or using actual routers or something like that. And I think that, while there's a lot of content and there may very well be a volume 3, as Vivek joked, but, the reality is that, there's only so much time for the test. So making sure you have that baseline knowledge, and then, knowing each of those things are key to success.
Thanks, Chad. And now that you are in your career, after stop being a mechanic and then an engineer, like a different kind of engineer, you have been working a lot with the public sector. And how would you describe that experience? Because not many people really go that way, that path.
Yeah. So I can tell you the sales cycles are longer. I did a brief stint at a different partner where I was covering, a lot of commercial accounts and so forth. And, I would go talk to a customer and then, a week later have a purchase order to go deploy it. So that always struck me as surprising. But, within the U.S. public sector, one of the things that I like about it is that there's a lot of regiment that's followed, right? There's regulations, there's frameworks that everyone tries to follow, so you can really figure out how does Cisco, or the security tool that I'm talking about fit into each of those frameworks. So whether it's 853, 802.07 with zero trust, FISMA, or any of those things that may come up, as well as the I guess it's almost a sense of duty. U.S. public sector is protecting the United States, protecting our people, protecting citizens of the United States, protecting my data, my social security information, all of that stuff, is under U.S. public sector. So I really enjoy working with the people there, and as SASE evolves, I mean, this is a transformational change for how customers have operated forever in the past, right? And we've always had this hard, crunchy outside, soft, gooey center sometimes of build a moat around my castle, aka my network. What we've been seeing with the transition to cloud and SASE has really broken that mold. And U.S. public sector, there's a lot of red tape to get through, but I think that they're making strides to get that way, and start being able to adopt some of this transformational stuff.
Great. Thanks, Chad. So I got a final question, and that will go to Aaron. So Aaron, can you please share with us how you met one of the authors of this book? Because you always have very interesting stories.
Yeah, sure. So I'll pick on Chad also, because Chad has to bail on us a little early today too. But I knew Chad before I knew Jamie and Vivek, actually. So I met Chad first. He was working for one of the premier deployment partners for NAC Appliance. I was working here at Cisco as one of the folks in the NAC business unit. And so anyway, I was working with a customer in the public sector, helping with a NAC deployment, and they were doing an early trial. They had a great NAC deployment, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, this policy set looked really familiar, and I'm like, and I'd see this pretty much I'd go to certain customers up in that region, that neck of the woods anyway, and I'd always see this very similar policy sets, and I end up learning that it was always Chad Mitchell who deployed these NAC deployments. These policy sets were almost always identical, same naming convention, same structure, and these were always the most successful NAC deployments there were, right? They were always him. Like he had like a very cookie cutter approach to how he wanted to deploy NAC. He taught the customer how he wanted to deploy NAC. They were always exactly, almost identical deployments every single time with the same names, right? And it was always this same style. Later
So you taught him to do that, Aaron.
I learned it from that guy.
I was about to say that.
My famous line was, I don't care if you do it right or wrong, but you're going to do it consistently. Consistently bad versus consistently good. I can fix a standard. I can't fix inconsistency everywhere.
I was going to say that too. Later on, I found out that it was his former manager, this guy, Jamie Sambauer, who had been working, also came over and worked at Cisco, who had trained Chad at this company. And I met the two of them. They come into our BU was sponsoring this event to train up partners on a product that hadn't quite gotten a name yet, but was going to be called the Identity Services Engine. Thank goodness. Didn't want to call it what we were going to call it, and which we'll say it was the Policy Services Engine, and you can figure out what the acronym would have been. But so we were all in this class and going through the very first people to learn how to set up, deploy, and all this stuff with the Policy Services Engine. And in comes Chad Mitchell and Jamie Sambauer, and they're sitting next to each other, and we're going through the labs, deploying all this stuff, and this is when I actually met Chad, who had done all these deployments that I had seen out at these different customers, and it was just really just the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah,
yeah. So we've been friends. This is how many years ago now? It's been a long time. And
who would have thought 11 years ago the three of us would be sitting on a call like this, right? It was I think 11 years ago when we sat in that, I think it was alpha training for what used to be Project Positron, I think was the for Identity Services Engine. But yeah, that was a fun time.
Funny part is whenever they ran into a problem, they would open a attack case, and I would be the tech engineer on the other end of the spectrum. So we had not met each other physically, but yeah, I mean, how we worked even all those years ago, not knowing, not meeting each other, and then where it led to.
And then I became the serviceability product owner for ICE. So as we had multiple product owners for ICE as it became a product, and so I would pull together a group of what I would consider trusted advisors, and I brought together Vivek and Chad and Jamie and lots of other people who were advisors for that, and we would all get together and work on lots of things, and Vivek would always come up with some wild, crazy product idea, and Jamie is also really, so between Vivek and Jamie, they can code up just about anything in probably a couple of hours, because both of them are really, really good at coding and APIs and things like that. And then there's me, who's barely capable of hacking something together that way. And then so we would all come up with really interesting ideas to try and make products better. And then those ideas, Jamie and Vivek would go off, and each of them would come back with probably a working prototype within a weekend. But yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of fun adventures together with these things. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well,
hope that answers your question.
It answers a lot, and I actually really like the fact of knowing that, like, it has been more than a decade, and now you're here actually, and we are gonna get to know more about it. So that's really awesome. And well, that concludes this part of the interview. So now we are gonna get over about the books. I know you're gonna mention the value of the books and many other things, and also would like to remind the audience that you guys can submit your questions on the Q&A panel, and the experts will answer them either like on the chat there or verbally. Okay, so please, Vivek, go ahead, and I hope you guys learn a lot from them.
Yeah, this is not as much a learning session. We wanted to make it into a learning session about SASE in particular, but then we changed our minds. We said, you know what, we not make it a huge learning session unless the Q&As take us towards that side. We'd use a session to answer a very important question. We'll come to that in a bit. But first, about the books, if you haven't, had access to them, 2-volume based primarily on the CCIE blueprint version 5, but also applies immensely to version 6. Not a huge difference. Version 1 is segregated into network perimeter security, firewalls, content security, umbrella AMP. The second volume is all about ICE, context sharing, PX grid, VPN, and virtualization. Right. So we neatly set it up in a way where if you're working just on firewalls or content security, you could just buy volume 1. But if you're looking more towards ICE and other stuff, you'd buy volume 2. So we wanted to set it up in that way. So the main topic of today, what we want to talk about, we usually have this question a lot nowadays. In an increasingly cloud-centric world, as things move to cloud, as offices close down, as users move remotely, does a CCIE security really matter, right? How important it is in today's cloud-centric world? I have 2 ways to answer this, 2 points to give to that. The first is easy, I'm going to get past it and then build to the second answer. Now, irrespective of where the application data, user, or device is, right, or are, you have to apply similar security policies. Whether your application is in the data center, is your application is in the cloud, whether your user is inside a campus or sitting in a coffee shop somewhere and accessing your data application, no matter what happens, you have to apply the same security principles to them, right? You have to secure data at rest, you have to secure data in motion, you have to apply the least privilege access controls to the users and devices. You have to apply the CIA tried to it no matter what, right? So irrespective of where data application users and devices move, security principles don't change. Right? They don't change in the cloud, they don't change anywhere else. You still have to apply the security principles to them. So, and CCIE security, now, we spoke about years ago. Back in 2006, the CCIE blueprint was more network, less security, right? Security was about 25% of my blueprint. 75% was still configuring routing, switching, et cetera. That was a CCIE blueprint back in 2006. Then 2007, when version 2 came out, and every iteration after that, we have started to focus more and more on security principles, fundamentals, technologies. Obviously, applying all of that using a Cisco product or a solution, because heck, it is a Cisco certification, right? But the CCIE blueprint in exam is always focused on making sure our candidates know the fundamentals of security, right? That is the key portion, the key reason behind the CCIE security. Second, the CCIE security has evolved with times. So if you look at version 5 blueprint, for example, about 3-4 years ago now, even then, there was focus on virtualization, on API security, being able to code. All of these were part of the blueprint. And going forward, you're probably going to start seeing more and more cloud and more API come into the blueprints, right? So CCIE, my first answer to the question is, a CCIE absolutely prepares you and is very, very relevant no matter where the data application user or device shift. Now, the second portion of my answer, you would analyze what's really shifting, right? Over the decades, we were used to this. Let's take a box as an analogy, right? The network was a box, completely controlled, maintained by the IT teams and IT ops teams. They knew exactly what switch and routers going in, what desktop, laptops, everything were issued by them. All application, data centers, servers, everything was controlled by them. So you take this box and you know exactly what's in the box, and there's nothing outside the box, right? It was much, much easier to manage, monitor, and secure. But then it started with remote users first. Your users started working from home. You started doing remote access VPN, IPsec, and then SSL. You started seeing mobile and personal devices evolve, iPhones and 4Gs. So now you had devices that you didn't issue, the IT team didn't issue, come into the box. You had IoT devices come into the box. It was easier to connect IP cameras, to connect IP phones, to connect IP printers, and all of them now started talking to the internet. So your box started evolving. The second change happened when things started moving out of the box. Your applications became micro applications. They split off. Some went into the cloud, some stayed in the data center. The data started moving out of the box. So now you suddenly have the box, which isn't going anywhere really. And then you have things outside the box. And now your IT team now starts to have more things to manage, things that they don't have control over. Second change that all of this has brought about is in the reality of the traffic flow itself. Earlier, all traffic flow was in that proverbial box. Now, and some of the traffic flow used to go out to internet for searches, etc., but majority of the traffic stayed within the box. But with the current reality of applications and data moving to different places, users moving out of your network, is that majority of the traffic is outbound to the internet, to the SaaS application, to the IaaS providers. The traffic that stays within the box accounts for, by some accounts, 20% or less. Now, different organizations is going to mean different things. I'm not saying 80-20 is a perfect split. There'll be organizations that have 50-50 or 60-40. But majority of the traffic is now flowing out of the box than staying within the box. Another way to look at it is, earlier, our networks used to be data center centric. So it was easier to configure the networks and secure the networks. You knew you had to put access control on the switches. You knew you had to put a firewall in front of the data center. You had to do layer 3 security. You had to do content inspection. You knew exactly what your choke points were and how to secure them. But now the world has changed to internet-centric, cloud-centric, application-centric network. Hence, the security also has to evolve accordingly. But again, going back, the box still exists and things outside the box are changing, evolving, but exist there. Lastly, given the changes that have come in how we consume data and application and how we connect to networks, there have been new architectures and models like the Secure Access Service Edge model that Gartner so beautifully defines, where they are saying that SASE brings together network as a service and network service as a network security as a service together into this SASE offering that providers like Cisco with their umbrella product are coming to the market for. It helps the IT ops team take some of the burnt out by providing them a single platform where they can manage all the network services, the security services, and now increasingly even the end user services. So as users spread out, application and data has to move closer to the user. That gave birth to the edges. And because wherever application and data is, you have to apply security. It also gave birth to security at edge. And Gartner's model combines all of that together to bring it into a single offering, a single configuration model of SASE. Right? Now, I don't want to deep dive into SASE here. I don't want to, sorry, Aaron, you want to say something?
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we're not looking to deep dive into SASE here yet, at least. What I'm trying to show you is going back to the whole concept of box. The box opened up, things moved out of the box, and now things are evolving out of the box into these new services like SASE. What do you think that does to an IT ops team and a SecOps team? Do you think it made their life easier? No, it made their life more difficult. Yes, these concepts and the whole move to cloud and the whole move to SASE makes things easier from an operational model, from a cost model, but to the IT and SecOps team that has to monitor everything now, they are just new, what we call pings, right? So my second answer to the question, is CCIE relevant today? I say cloud, SASE, data center, remote. What we have done is we have increased our pins, which is places in the network. So with more pins, we're going to need more CCIs. So the move to cloud should not scare you away from certifications like CCI or CCI Security or any equivalent certification. It shouldn't drive you towards it, but with the intention of evolving beyond it. The certification also has to evolve, but our CCIs also need to evolve to know more about cloud, more about how the same concept of networking and security work in the cloud and what tools to use there. But CCI is more relevant than it has ever been, and it will continue to get more and more relevant because things are getting more and more complex, not easier.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Aaron.
the thing that I was going to interject, like if you go back to the drawing real quick, so like the concept that is SASE, right, and the concept that is the security fundamental, it's like, and this is kind of, I mentioned earlier, I have a 22-year-old daughter who's graduating, with a computer science degree and moving into this. And the funniest thing is, like, the same security concepts are still the same security concepts, and the same networking concepts they're all still the same. We just keep moving the technology or increasing the technology or making the technology newer and faster and better, and then naming it something new. And so like to me it's kind of fun because I get to have these geek conversations with my kid now that I never really got to have before, and I get to tell her, that's the same thing as this, only newer and faster and slightly different technology now, but it's still the same thing. SASE is still, we used to do this before where we would take MPLS networks in certain, especially in government institutions, right? We would actually say, all right, we're not going to go and deploy these big expensive IPSs and firewalls everywhere. What we're going to do instead is take these security stacks, and we're going to create like one big giant network stack over here, and we're going to use MPLS to ensure that all of our traffic was forced to go through this centralized security stack in your private MPLS environment. And it basically, SASE is doing the same security concept, only you're doing it over a more public infrastructure now, right? You've privatized the shaping of the network traffic over public infrastructure. And I'm just cracking up at how much the same security concepts just keep getting reused over and over and over again, right? Just in slightly new ways, and we throw new marketing terms over top of it, and we integrate other technologies, right? So we're using SD-WAN, right, and other carriers now to shape the traffic to go through a centralized security stack, and that centralized security stack is as a service stacks now, right? So that you're not necessarily managing that giant stack of security equipment yourself. You're using security and networking as a service instead, right? And we're calling it SASE. So go ahead, James.
I'm with you, Aaron. The biggest thing I think I've seen is just scale. Like that's the difference between now and 15 years ago. Having that, even a retail branch used to have T1s 15 years ago. Today they're getting off the shelf broadband that's a gig or more. And so what's happening is building that regional stack yourself, or even hosting it in your own Amazon account or Google account. The amount of throughput required to self-manage and self-maintain and then scale it out is where kind of industry in general wants to go to as a service, because I go from 1 gig to 2 gig in 5 years, not a big deal. I can grow up in the cloud and allow that scale to happen naturally. The other thing that's unspoken in here that I think is important is just this concept of applying the same controls and security to on-prem users as you would for remote users. And actually, the funniest part about that feature, Aaron, it's the same thing. Aaron, I think, was a part of some of the original always-on VPN designs. And one of the concepts was, well, hey, I have users who roam on and off networks. I want to be able to apply a consistent policy to those users. hey, that's exactly what we're doing in SASE. It's just we're not terminating on a customer's premise and terminating it in their location, data center, co-location. We're terminating it up inside of that access services edge that's offered as a service. So Aaron's 100% right. The next one, and you heard it here first, folks, is this concept of software-defined networks based on endpoints and workloads. Like there's a lot of push right now to even extend software-defined networks to devices themselves. So instead of creating an overlay based on networks, I'm going to create that overlay based on endpoints. Well, if you go back 22 years, in my Microsoft Windows 2000 days, they added a feature called IPsec based on Active Directory. What was it? It was a host-to-host IPsec overlay. That technology failed for certain reasons 20 years ago. Today, it's now like hot topic. How do I create this overlay to simplify security policy enforcement? What's old is new again, over and over and over again.
It is, and actually Microsoft will actually push that as an answer for zero trust in a Microsoft-only environment. The same technology they were using in MCSE 2000, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, as you can see from years and years, we have seen changes, and with every change, there is always this question of, are we still relevant? The answer is always going to be things don't get simpler, things get more complex, unfortunately. And as long as we evolve ourselves, as we learn the new uses of the old technology, and obviously we learn the new technology as it comes in too, we'll be more and more relevant, right?
So the only other thing, Vivek, I have to add to that is there's more to the CCIE than just the technology that's on the blueprint. Like for me personally, it was all about learning how to learn. Like I actually had an easier experience than probably some of my coworkers because I did my first CCIE when I was 19. I didn't have 10 years of relevant experience to go after it, but that actually helped me because I had no preconceived notion of what was right or wrong, what was best practice. So when I looked at a general theoretical concept like BGP, I didn't care that almost everyone uses 3 of the 7 methods. I learned the 7 methods equally. You went and asked Aaron, he would have learned the 3 that every customer was using. And those other 4, prioritization methods don't need to learn. The key kind of message here is it actually helps you learn how to learn. Like going from zero knowledge to a lot of knowledge is going to apply whether you're doing CCIE Security, whether you do a different track of CCIE, or if you're trying to learn SASE or zero trust concepts. All of the learning how to learn is kind of the best thing I took out of the program.
Yeah, one of the other things to do is just play in the lab. Just play. Start toying around with features. Just because you set something up and it succeeded does not mean you're finished. Right? Hey, I got this feature up and running. I'm done. No, you're not. Right? There are 10,000 nerd knobs with that feature. What do those nerd knobs do? Why did you succeed? Right? So one of the things that we were talking earlier, Chad left, but we can still talk about him behind his back. One of the things that makes Chad good at his job is he likes to understand why things work. Right? It's one of the things that makes Jamie good at his job and Vivek good at his job, right? Is they all like to understand why things work, not just that what are the commands to make it work. And the best thing to understand when you get into the lab, right, is when something is not working, what are the requirements to make that work? Not just what are the commands to make it work. What would make it work? What would stop it from working, right? Because you need to keep a really calm head to be able to say, okay, it's not working right now. Very calmly, what are the things that would have kept it from working so that I can very calmly look at this, step back and say, what are the things that would stop it from working? Because there will be, especially order of operations type things, right, thrown in more than likely, right, that'll say, this isn't working because I just put a firewall rule that might block, the communications between these two systems, right? Or whatever. Right? You never know what might be there. But you have to make sure you understand why the feature works, not just what the commands were to make the feature or the communication work. Right? So when you're in that lab, understand it. Right? Look at those debugs. Those debugs work. They're great.
I love that, Aaron. I used to actually use as an interview question when I'd interview candidates at different levels. I would ask them to describe how a home router would work. And what was so intriguing was how many people didn't have the baseline knowledge of, well, I connect to a port. What's the first, absolute first thing that's going to occur from that network interface card? And then how does the process of DHCP and then, IP address, ARP, and then routing work? And then from that point, that home router is doing NAT and stateful firewalling. And it was an interesting question because you get that level of answer. You'd immediately be able to find the folks that wanted to understand how things worked versus just going, oh, I made it work. I didn't really think about how it works. It's that curiosity that actually grows engineering skills so much. Let's just talk.
We'd be happy to go through slides, but we're really hoping to get to some QAs. Just talk. Almost any topic is on the deck, except, of course, let's keep it to security and CCI. Nothing personal, but yeah, wide open Q&A. And we have another 11 minutes for that.
I think, a few more minutes. If you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A. What is Cisco's?
I do have some questions.
I don't know if we
looking
can
for the ones from the audience.
I don't think we can talk about roadmap, unfortunately, right, in a public forum. People are asking, what is a roadmap? Cisco's roadmap, Cisco products, and CCIE. We definitely can't talk about roadmap or anything for CCIE because nothing other than what's publicly promoted in blueprints. Because none of us are actually willing to risk our CCIEs in talking about anything that's not publicly announced.
I love that question when people ask it, though. What's the secret of passing it? And I've done 3, and I tell them the same thing every time. For me, personally, it's 300 hours of study time, and that's all it takes. Now, all 3 experiences were 300 hours spent over different time periods. First one, 3 months. Second one, I think 12 months. Third one, I did it in like 15 months. But it all depends on life. I love that question. What's the magical secret of passing the CCIE, and where is this thing going to? It just takes time and effort.
The hardest security technology to understand is absolutely also entirely subjective question. It all depends on who you are and where your background is. So, like for me, right, the easiest thing on the exam was going to be the 802.1x and the ICE technology, ICE type technology on this exam. When I went through and started the CCIE Security, there was no ICE. It was ACS and 802.1x on Catalyst 12.2, early 12.2 code, which was buggy as all get out. So because I did a lot of it. So that was obviously going to be the easiest part for me. The harder part for me would have been the, different VPN technologies because I wasn't doing that day to day. So it's going to be what do you do the most of? And so Brad Johnson asked a great question of how many energy drinks should you shotgun? And I wouldn't shotgun any because you may crash hard. Shotgunning energy drinks before taking an exam is probably a very bad idea. You want to be even. You want to have energy, but you want to be even. You don't want to have a crash in the middle of an exam, and you definitely don't want to have a heart attack. So,
one thing I would like to add to that, though, is I've seen my fair share of candidates going to the exam with me, right? Very tight wound, starting right towards the last minute before the proctor walks you in. Don't do that. right? Don't do that.
Yeah.
That last 1 hour, 1.5 hours is not going to make you learn something you don't already learn, right? What helped me personally on the day of the exam, no energy drinks, of course, just have a decent breakfast, walk in there, no studies, just get in, feel of the Cisco office, wait for the proctor. Once you get your questions in the lab, you're all seated. I would just walk out. I would not start opening the exam paper. I'll walk out, hit the restroom, raid the fridge, get a couple of drinks for the whole day, on my table, then just read through the questions, right? Spend my first 15, 20 minutes looking through the questions, understanding them, forming my opinion on what I'm looking at, and then touching the device, right? Touching my laptop. Obviously now with all the modules, it's changed, but it gives you an idea of do not go intense. You have those 8 hours. Do not rush into it. I think almost every candidate with me opened the book, started typing. I'm like, you don't even know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
The questions, form your
Read the
plan.
questions.
Yeah, form your plan
Yeah.
of action. What are you going to attack first? What is going to take time? Which do you want to do now so that you restart services or whatever it does while you attack something else? Because you got to optimize your time, right? So energy drinks or not, but yeah, you come.
Yeah, the one I passed. So I failed to pass the third. I took my first one right as they were switching. I took one right before they changed blueprints, and I tried to get it in right before it happened, and I didn't believe I failed on my first attempt. I made them rescore it. I just did not believe I failed. So I paid for a rescore, and but even after the rescore, they still said I failed. I was so upset. Like Mason Harris was my mentor back then. I actually called him up, and I was so disheartened. I was ready to throw in the towel, give up on the CCIE, because I walked out of that exam confident that I passed. I was just bummed. There's no way. No way I failed. I know I did really well. And it was probably something stupid. Like, I would say it was like I didn't save my config, but I know that's not true. To this day, it's like post-traumatic stress disorder. I must hit WR enter so often with all of my configs that I just, I'm in the middle of everything, and I like even on my Nexuses, I have to do WRs. Like I do not do copy run start ever. I have to alias WRs. Like it's like I twitch if I can't type WR. And I write my config so much because I was so afraid I would lose my work. But so I don't think that's the case. But I lost things. So I failed that one. Was really disheartened. I failed the second time. Third time I passed. Third time when I passed, I was calm as can be. Took my time, did exactly what Vivek said, read everything. Everyone else had already started typing. I ignored everyone else. Just took my time, read everything, had a plan of attack, went through it, right? I had 3 hours left by the end of that exam, and I don't know how. I just thought I did something wrong. I went up to the proctor. His name was Howard, and I said, Howard, I'm done. I even reviewed everything. I don't know what to do. He told me to get out. Get out, go. And he's like, if you change anything, you're just going to second guess yourself and you are going to fail. And I was like, so I left. I went home, 3-hour drive, cooked my family dinner. Didn't expect to hear anything. It was a Friday, which kills me. I didn't want to do it on a Friday, but that's when I got the time. Next thing I know, I got a thing on my phone, right? Told me that my manager was congratulating me on passing. He knew before I did that I passed, right? And it was just, it was like it was unbelievable what the feeling that I got on that one. But I did exactly what Vivek said though. I ignored everybody else. I took my time, had a plan of attack, made sure I got everything right. That's best advice you can have, and stay calm. Stay calm, read everything first. Don't just jump right into configuring for the design part of the exam.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. I have one that I found it very interesting, and the person really wanted to know who of you decided on the section titles of the presentation that you you just showed us.
Oh, we worked on that together. Vivek came up with the original fun ideas of like you know, using like 404 and you know the ELO and things like that. Is section titles from the book? Is that what they were asking?
No, the ones in the presentation you on the slides.
They were in the slide. That's why I thought they meant.
Yep.
Yeah. So the slide section names we came up as a team. The book section names, I came up with the idea, and then everybody we just contributed. We went crazy. There was a particular section where we took a word. I think it's CCIE, and we hashed it, and then we took that as a book title. So yeah, but between four of us, you'll always see section titles, whether on a presentation or the books, are going to be different, to say the least.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
we try to inject personality. These things can be so boring that we try to inject as much personality into it as possible. There's lots and lots of Easter eggs, by the way, that I think maybe 2 people have called me on or emailed me on. So there's so many Easter eggs in this book that very few people have found. So I find that really interesting.
All right, I have another question here. It says, and I guess this is going to be the last one due to the time, is where do you feel your books fits into a study plan? Read first to get an overview or use them when deep diving?
So personally speaking, right, when Aaron and I, so how these book concepts came to be was Aaron and I were walking out of helping create the CCIE blueprint. And we're driving to dinner, and we're like, you know what, this blueprint is a monster. There isn't a single material to study. So the book was intended to be the first study material. It can be used for deep dive, of course, because as we evolved the blueprint, the topics, and we started writing the books, we went in depth. But the original, very first original intent, the day the idea was born, was to be initial reference book. So it's actually okay to use both places. I would, if I was a candidate, I would love to pick up this book. I would love to read through the technology, go back into the lab, and then move to the next chapter, read through the technology, go to the lab, right? So it's okay to use in both
Vivek.
places. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can use the book as an initial reference material and also as a deep dive later, but was intended to be.
Thank you very much, Vivek. So the last question is, do you have a lab environment that one can use to practice these concepts in the cloud?
There is dCloud if you have access to it, but then most of us just run our own lab in whatever capacity we can. Usually virtualize labs at our house or office environment if we have access to that. But most of us will almost always have our own lab to tinker around with.
Okay, thank you very much, Vivek. And with that, we close down this session, and we are just like some few minutes over to finish this. So what we're going to do is please go to the next slide so we can announce the winners of like these books. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much, audience, for joining us today. And we apologize for the couple of minutes more in this session. And thank you really much to Chad, Vivek, Jamie, and Aaron for sharing their knowledge and all the helpful tips for the CCIE security. So today we just have run like the random decision. And as we promised, I'm very happy because this is the first time we actually got a girl winning. So the first book goes to Betsy Gonzalez. She's actually in South America. So Betsy, congratulations. And the second one goes to Barry Kroger. And Barry is actually in the north side of America. So funny, they go in the 2 bowls. So we are going to contact you via email directly, the one that you used to register to this event, just to double check how we are going to send them to you. For the rest of the people who didn't got the chance to actually win this book, don't worry. If you help us out to fill out the survey, you are going to get as well a special discount from Cisco Press, so you can get any of these 2 volumes of the security books or any other material that you are looking for. So that's a really nice discount just for you on this session. And thank you very much for joining. And thank you so much for joining. Please don't forget to fill out the survey. It helps us out to understand how we're doing and how we can improve. And once again, thanks for everyone who has joined in this session. And thanks, Vivek, and thanks to the rest of the team. So we might see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.